Hello, good afternoon. Good day. So karon I will be discussing to you joint arrangement. Ano, um, kani siyang handout kay money sa pinakol, and I will be using this one for discussion sa GA. Okay, let's proceed to number one. Number one, the question is, it is characterized by contractual arrangement whereby two or more parties have joint control of the arrangement. You say joint control, no, regardless of the interest, ang parties kay nasa joint control, meaning to say unanimous, dapat naa sila influence as to decision making. Not like sa sa business com na naay parent to subsidiary na relationship, diba, more or less si parent ang dakog controlling interest. So sa joint control or joint ang control, meaning to say regardless of the interest kay the parties kay na sila influence as to decision making, no, regardless of interest. So answer ani kay Apple, joint arrangement. Okay, for number 2, it is contractually agreed sharing of control of arrangement which exists only when decisions about relevant activities required unanimous consent of the party sharing control. Okay, so number 2 kay joint control. Okay, so ang GA class kay ang joint arrangement kay pwede na siya joint venture and joint operation. Ang joint venture kay bang say joint venture, two parties, for example si A o si B, they will create for specific operation, they will create a separate vehicle na si C. So, meaning to say, si joint venture, it needs to have a separate vehicle kay ang ilang interest ni A o ni B ni C kay as to net asset or capital. Diba? Wala siya. Si joint operation kay pwede na siya separate vehicle or wala. Yung sa separate vehicle kay separate entity or distinct siya ba? Dili si A o si B. Okay? So, muna siya timan A. Si joint venture, necessary jud ang separate vehicle siya kay ang joint parties ay na ang ilang interest kay dili as to asset, dili as to liab, as to net assets or ang capital. So yun sa joint operation, for example si A o si B, ang ilang gi-joint lang kay ang ilahang operations. So na operation si A, napos operation si B to complete a specific transaction or project. So sa joint venture, dili siya necessary nga na-adjoy separate vehicle, not like joint venture. Kaya nga naman, no say joint operation, si A or si B, they have the right to its asset, liab. Si A pod, si B pod, na po siya right to its own asset and liab. Okay, mag-share na lang sila sa net income or net loss sa operation or asset own or arising from the joint operation. Pero ang ilang kagalingang asset o liab, sila mo na ay control or interest. Okay? So again, joint operation, pwede siya separate vehicle or pwede dili. Pero sa joint venture kay need siya nga na ay separate na vehicle. Number 3, it is a type of joint arrangement whereby parties have joint control of the arrangement, have the right to total assets and obligations. Ang joint parties or ang parties kana sila right as to the total assets and obligation. Okay? Kasama to na ay right to total assets and obligation. Si joint operation. Okay? Number 4. It is a type of joint arrangement whereby parties have joint control of the arrangement, have the rights to the net assets, meaning to say wala sa asset, wala sa total asset, wala po siya sa total liab, pero sa net assets or capital lang ang ilang interest. No? So, C, joint venture. And number 5, what is the classification of joint arrangement when the asset and liabilities relating to arrangement are held by separate vehicle? Okay, ayaw kalimot. In say separate vehicle, necessary si joint venture, pero pwede na si JO, di ba? So, pag separate vehicle, dili na siya automatic na GV. You need to attest or test paghapon kung ang ilahang right as to what man, total assets ba, or total liabilities ba, or as to total net assets lang. So, number 5, kay, or when the arrangement is established with separate vehicle. So, pwede nang duha, di ba? So, the answer for this, kay pwede man ang duha, the answer for number 5, kay dog. It can be either joint operation or joint venture depending on the legal form of the separate vehicle. Manto siya. Depende kung unsay forma. Kung nag-create ba sila separate vehicle, automatic, that's GV. Pero pwede po sa JO. Ma-JO siya, although separate vehicle if their right kay as to total assets and separate po ang ilang right as to total liabilities. So, na sila right control sa ilang kagalingong assets and they have also obligation to their own liabilities. Muna siya ay JO. Kaya ang ilang joint, ang ilang ramang operation. Number 6. Under PFRS 11, how shall the joint venture account for its investment in joint venture? Under the PFRS 11 standard, automatic investment in joint venture kay equity method. No? Automatic na siya. So, under equity method kay initial measurement, diba? Pila ang purchase cost or cost plus share in net income, less share in net loss, and less share in dividend received. Nga naman, because again, under equity method, any dividend received is not a return on investment but a return of investment. So, deduction na siya sa mga investment. Number 7. Under PFRS 11, how shall the joint operator account for its interest in a joint operation? Again, for joint venture, ang tawag joint venturer, and sa joint operation, ang tawag nila kay joint operator. Account for its interest in a joint operation. So, sa umandok na ilang interest sa joint operation. Okay? Diba? Pag joint operation, ang joint nila o ilang ang share is ang operation lang. Diba? For example, construction. Si A kay na siya operation or kanang iyahang service kay as to kuan ra kanang grading o sa na si company B kay siya na joy mo pa kuan sa building, di ba? So, ga-join sila pero ang ilang gi-join kay ang operation lang just to finish a specific project. Pero pag joint venture kay a separate entity jud or a separate vehicle jud ang mogama, no? Ang mo complete sa project. So, answer for number 7 kay dog. The operator shall account for its interest by recognizing its own assets, liabilities, revenue, and expenses, and share in the jointly controlled assets katong ilahang gig-acquire for the specific na operation. Pero kato ilang kagalingong asset ng ilahang gagmiton for the operation kay sila ato. Jointly incurred liabilities and jointly earned revenue and jointly incurred expenses. So, katong ilahang jointly controlled asset, laya, magtunga sila na as also to kuan ang revenue and expenses. Tunga na sila. In accordance with, dili siya tunga, mag-share sila in accordance with their interest sa ilang arrangement. So, answer for number 7 kay dog. Sige, let's proceed to the problem. Number 1. Ato ni siyang identify what kind of joint arrangement ni siya. So, pag na-joint control, that's joint arrangement, di ba? So, on January 1, entity A, a public entity, and entity B, a public entity, incorporated entity C. Okay, so na ay separate vehicle. So, what kind of joint arrangement man? Although na separate vehicle, you cannot automatically conclude na GV na siya. Okay, the contractual agreement of the incorporating entities provided that decisions on relevant activities of entity C will require the unanimous, so na ay joint control, consent of both parties, no, is, diba, ang tawag, ilahang ratio kay 40-60, pero unanimous decision. Entity B, A and B will have the rights to the net assets or ang equity lang. So, ang net assets, kaya sa ganito, that's joint venture. So, entity A, B, invested. So, kung pag joint venture siya, ang sa ganito, ang investment will be accounted using the equity method. So, entity A and B invested 1 million, 1.5 respectively, equivalent to 40-60. Interest of entity C, the financial statement of entity C provided the following data for its 2-year operation. Question for number 1, what is the balance of investment in entity C to be reported by A? And what is the balance of investment in entity C to be reported by B? So, sugot ka A. A, pila man lang yung initial cost or investment. Diba? We have here 1 million. The entity B. Entity A. You say in equity method kay naa siya share sa net income or loss, no, add deduct, and kaning sa dividends declared deduct na siya puro kay that's a return of capital man. So since 2021 man ang gipangita, diretso nya balance pa jud, technique na class kay pwede na naman na siya i-net tanan, diba? In-net tanan, so that's negative or a share of net loss na 1/8, diba? 1/8 na yun, dividends declared na 100. So share in net income or loss kay 1/8 multiply by pila yung percentage 40%, diba? So that's 1/8 times 0.4 na siya ay share nga net of deduction na 720, and then dividends niya 100 and 40% that's 40. So, ang iyang balance na lang sa iyang investment as of December 31, 2021, that's 1 million minus 720 plus 40 so 1/8 times 0.4, 720 minus din yung dividend. Minus 1 million minus 720 minus 40. So, answer kay 240,000. So, answer ani kay cut. So, for number 2, investment in entity C to be reported by entity B, initial cost sa yang investment kay 1.5. Again, share niya sa 1.8, 60%. 60% sa 1.8 kay 1,080,000, and iyahang dividends received kay 60,000. That's 60% of 100. Diba 100? 60% of 100. That is also a deduction, no? So 1.5 minus 1,080 less 60. So, the answer kay 360,000. Answer kay cut. For problem 2. For problem 2, that's a joint venture. Well, again, automatic required equity method. What is the share in the net loss or investment loss to be reported by the company for the year ended December 31, 2021? So, share niya sa net loss kaning 6 million. That's 6 million. Pila yung interest? Times 50%. That's 3 million. Right? That's it. 3 million. Number 2, what is the book value of the investment in joint venture? So, book value or carrying amount. So, again, pwede niyo muna binagsaon times 0.50, times 0.50, times 0.50. Or, pwede rin na niyo sa diretso og net. Kaya nga naman, ang iyang pangutana kay balance of the investment in joint venture at the end of 2022. So, pwede niyo muna siya i-0.50 dire. So, na siya share nga 500. Times 0.50 dire. Na siya share nga 3 million nga loss. Or pwede rasad nimo siya i-net, di ba? Kani siya i-total 800. Total niya nga dividend received. And then kani kay 1 million na ay 6 million nga loss, and then na ay net income na 7. So ang net ana kay 7 plus 6 plus 1, diba? Net anak kay net na 2 million. Positive. Net income. So, pag abot mo din sa question number 2, automatic initial cost sa iyang investment kay 2 million. Diba? Share sa net income or loss niya, 50% of 2 million, that's 1 million. Then, share sa iyang dividend received, 800,000, 50% anak, 400,000. Diba? 400,000 deduction. So, 2 million, 3 million minus 4, that's 2.6. So, answer for number 2, question 2 for number 2 kay 2.6, boy. Diba? Nalarak sa yun. Nalarak sa yun ang joint arrangement. Number 3, kani. Medyo kanya siya, muna siya medyo taas-taas na example sa joint arrangement aning handout. Again, let's identify first what kind of joint arrangement ni siya, because it depends on how you will treat your assets and liabilities, diba? And your interest. So, joint entity A and B incorporated C, okay, na separate vehicle. But again, you cannot conclude nga kana siya kay joint venture. To manufacture a microchip to be used by the incorporating entities as component for their final products of cellular phones and tablets. The contractual agreement state that the incorporating entities provided that the decisions on relevant activities of entity C will require unanimous consent. So that is the very essence jud, kaya na unanimous consent. Dili ra usa ang magbuot. Entity A and entity B have rights to, again, entity A and entity B have the rights to the assets and obligations for the liabilities relating to the arrangement. So, what kind of joint arrangement man siya? Kay ang rights as to assets and obligation man. So, kani siya kay joint operation. The ordinary shares of entity C will be owned by the entity A and B in the ratio of 60-40. At the end of first operation, entity C was separated, okay, as follows. The contractual agreement of entities A and B also provided for the following concerning the asset and liability. Okay, concerning the asset and liability. So sila, if ilahan na ang liabilities, if ilahan na ang asset, then sila may mo recognize ana. Pero mag-share sila again no sa jointly controlled assets and jointly controlled liabilities and revenue and expenses. So ang ilang agreement provides that entity owns the land. So kaning land kang A na, ingon siya. and incurs the loan payable of entity C. So, kaning ka loan payable do ko, no? Kaning loan payable ka A. So, A, ana. Muna siya joint operation class. And second, entity B owns the building and incurs the note payable of entity C. So, building, money ka B, and note payable kay iha po na B. Okay? The other assets and liabilities are owned or owed by entity B on the basis of their capital interest. So, other than any, kaning si inventory, kang A na or B, kaning accounts payable, share sila ana. Then, the sales revenue of entity C includes sales A and B in the amount of 1 million and 2 million. So, again, it's also same with the concept of business combination. Any intercompany sales na wala pa na-realize, it will be deducted from the sales, kapara itong intercompany transactions. Okay, again, they are considered as dili siya pwede. So, as of the end of the first year, entity A and B were able to resell 30% and 60%. So, again, 1 million and 2 million ang sales and intercompany sales from C to A, C to B. So, sa 1 million, 30% ang nabaligya sa gawas. So, ang 70% ana mo'y unrealized, no? And 22 million kay 60% ang na-resell. And so, 40% ana mo'y unrealized. Okay. So, first question, what is the amount of total assets to be reported by entity A? So again, kung unsa iya ha siya ra ana, dili na siya kanang tungaon or i-share. And then katong jointly controlled assets dito na magtunga. So assets man unsa ganito ka A kay A owns the land, cost niya kay 3 million. Tama? And so pala wala na. And then, sa inventory kay, share sila, 60-40. 60 ka A, 40% kang B. So, 60% of 1 million times 60% kay, that's 600. So, yung total assets to be reported by A concerning its interest in entity C kay 3.6. Answer kay letter C. Next, what is the amount of total liabilities to be reported by entity B concerning its interest in entity C? So, layab. Ang kang B, ang iyahang obligation as to layab kay iyaha daw kuno ang note payable which is 1 million. 1 million. And then, share na silang duha sa accounts payable na 2 million. So, pila man ang yung share ana? That's 2 million times 40%. Diba? 40%. Pila man na? $800. Sorry guys. 800,000. So, iyang total liabilities concerning its interest sa entity C kay 1.8. Dili pareha sa joint venture ba nga? Kung pili ang iyang total assets ug total layab kay pareha sila sharing. Pareha sila kanang ga-share sila puro manang share sa net asset kani kay lahi ang ilahang kung sa asset kay A ni ka A ra na kang B ni kang B ra po na then ang katong jointly controlled asset usa mo ra kay lang tungaon no more. That's the main difference between GV and JO. And question number 3, what is the amount of sales revenue to be reported by entity A concerning its interest in entity C? So again, ang sales revenue nga gi-report ni entity C kay 5 million. Okay? Pero including na dire ang 1 and 2 million nga intercompany sale. So pwede naman na siya ninganion. First nga alternative kay pwede na pauni mo tong duha 1 million, again kuha na 2 million. So ang wala intercompany sale jud kay 2 million. Dayon add back nimo tong na-resell katong na-realize outside, that's 300,000 or 30% of 1M, diba? And then na-realize nga 60%, nakabasol na siya lang, 60% of 2M, that's 1.2. So total ani kay kailangan, that's 2 million plus 300 plus 1.2, that's 3.5, diba? 3.5. Pila ang share ni A? Diba? Pila ang share ni A? 60% times 60%. Paiyaha kay 2.1. So answer for number 3 kay boy. Or pwede ninyo ning anion. Pwede sad ning ani. Gikan ka sa 5 million. Kaon na nimo tong unrealized. So pila ang unrealized sa 1 million? 30% ang realized. So 70% ana kay unrealized. So 70% of 1M, that's 700, diba? Deduct nyo na. Dayon, 40% unrealized sa 2 million. That's 800. Pwede ning ana, depende kung asa ka komportable. So 5 million plus 700 plus 800, that's 3,500,000. Same siya ani usa. Then times interest. Times interest niya nga 60%. So same. Answer kay 2.1. Boy. So that's it. That's joint arrangement. So if nakabantay mo atong no separate books, atong ning ato, that is common to joint operations. Kay usually dili jud wala jud separate vehicle ang joint operation, but it doesn't mean dili pwede. So pag walay separate books, kaya either A or B ang mo record sa mga transactions. So mura na siya katong kumantay mo atong T account, mura na siya og income summary nga account. So tanang income kay naa diri, di ba? Tanang purchase, tanang debit, tanang purchase naa diri. Dayon, ang ending inventory kay diri butang sa PCAS to reflect the cost of goods sold. Yan na, di ba? So same ra gyapon na siya concept, and then ilang mag-share sila sa kung debit ang balance, that's not loss, di ba? Pag credit ang balance, that's not income. Muna to iyahang medyo tricky sa joint arrangement. So again, joint arrangement can be joint venture or joint operation. Pag joint venture, their rights and obligation kay net assets. So naay separate vehicle, yes, necessary nga naay separate vehicle. Joint operation, rights to its total assets, total liabilities, and pwede mag-share sila na lang sa joint controlled assets and liabilities and revenues and expenses. And then with separate vehicle, yes, pwede po wala. Okay, pwede na separate vehicle, pwede po wala. Okay, that's it. That's joint arrangement.